I am here tonight to introduce a new topic, drawing on critical reading, because you need to get ideas from sources. And once you have those ideas from those sources, you are now going to have to write. And to write, it means those ideas need to be organized properly, and ideas obtained from sources and ideas that the student generates in their writing and in um, training their students to also write, or their learners to also write. Um, they need to, students need to use some of this workshop content to see how that can best be done, because ultimately we want them to write. But if we are able to get the students to write um, academically sound essays and do critical reading, critical writing, then we know that that will filter down to their classrooms, where their practice will then draw on such content as presented in a workshop of this nature. So what is the topic tonight? It is critical writing, critical writing at university, and hoping that this writing will also translate into some form of writing which students, rather learners, do when you then help them with their own writing, if that would be of relevance. But I hope it will. I want you to be able to apply the content, to write critically, your essays or your research projects. But before we can get into that aspect of critical writing, I want you to bear in mind that you need structure. First, those writings that are critical, they need to be structured, they need to be organized, so that when you write, you know how to arrange those ideas, how to arrange those ideas, yes, in a paragraph, right? So I want us to start there before we see the actual critical writing. I want us to start by saying, let's lay the foundation. Let's put this way of writing in a structured format of writing, so that we do not have a critical eye in our writings, but that writing is not structured. And if it's not structured, then it would make sense, because it's all over, it's not flowing. I worked with the students on critical reading, how to do a critical reading, how to do intensive critical reading, extensive critical reading, and what are the ways to do it. We did we covered these aspects in our previous workshop. Of course, it wasn't very comprehensive. It was sort of showing students how to go about doing it without providing in-depth sort of ways that the students can. But I believe the workshop content, which you can draw online and listen what actually transpired, they would actually help in emphasizing, zooming students' focus on the importance of critical reading. But then there is another aspect to this critical writing. Now that I have read and I have sort of gathered ideas from the readings and generated ideas stimulated by the readings, I need to write in answering or addressing a research topic or an essay topic or a paragraph question. So how do I then write that? And I need to write critically. I need to know what I am supposed to do to be a critical writer. I know what I'm supposed to be a critical reader. I know to be a critical reader, I do not just focus on what the text says. I also look into the aspect of what the text is doing to me as a reader, and compare what they know already on the subject and what other writers or authors say, because they are not coming into this reading exercise um, um, without prior knowledge. They come into this reading exercise knowing something on the subject that they are reading about. And so we want that to feature as well in the reading, in the intensive reading, extensive reading. But not only reading with the text, but also against the text, understanding what the text is doing to me, how it is positioning me, how it is shifting my perspectives on that subject, or how it is intending to influence or to convince me on a matter or on a particular subject. So as we work around this, or how it is intended to inform me on this subject that I am investigating. So we ask those questions as we are reading, and we then engaging as we do so in critical reading. So those are some of the things that we covered in our previous workshops regarding critical reading. Now we want to now look into doing critical writing. And so how do we become critical writers is the big question. But before we write critically, I want us to see a way in which our writing will be um, shaped in an organized manner, and the ideas that we are putting together in written form flow together and stick together, and these ideas ultimately make sense. So to do that, we need to ensure that our writing is structured. So academic writing is structured. So before I show students how to critical writing, I want to have that writing can be structured so that it is formatted within a particular structure which helps the students to put across their messages more powerfully. So let's look together at this aspect of academic writing being structured. Now, suppose we're not yet there in terms of critical writing. We don't know how to go about doing it. If we are then empowered to do critical writing, when it is a critical on this or topics, we need to structure our work. Remember, it is structured. Even when you write an essay, think of how would you structure your essay. Think of how you would structure a business report, because all of them, they are genres that have rules or applicable rules. They follow certain patterns, and those patterns must be known to the students. If a student is writing a paragraph, what do you know about paragraph writing, for instance? Before you write that paragraph, how are you going to write it? Because it's part of writing. So I believe that it is important students to know how to structure your paragraphs, because academic writing is structured, and other forms or genres of um, um, writing, they also follow certain rules of writing. If you're reading, for instance, a letter, you have to follow certain rules or format of writing that letter. If it's a blog, also there's a format that perhaps you need to use. And if it's an application letter, you also have to follow a certain format. So that is structure, which we are talking about. So if it's an essay or paragraph at university, how do we structure those ideas in the paragraph? It will be a big question to students. How do I really organize my paragraphs? How do I structure my paragraphs so that they make sense, good sense, and they are logical, and they are also coherent? how do I make sure that they meet that requirement? Here at university, as you write your paragraphs, you must maintain that structure. When you write an essay, this is the structure that you have to adhere to. Um, Now, I'm looking at the structure and I'm asking, are these the kind of things that students do when they write? Let me check if this is applicable practice with regard to students writing. I'm going to check what you have in the chat box, what you've put down in the chat box. I'm going to read now. It reads as follows. For the academic writing to be organized, thank you very much. I need to, this is Cindy Sewa, I need to have knowledge about what I am going to write about and have a full understanding of the content structure and use the formal writing as it is the academic writing, putting what I wanted to be, what I want to be understood by others. But I need to have full idea, being positive, by being positive, by full idea, by being positive and negative ideas I have before writing them down. Okay, so I write in a way that my ideas are linking good. I write in a way that my ideas are linking. That is a very nice one. And not losing the ideas that I am writing down. Thank you very much. And I can see your notebook is also right there, typing in the chat box. It's writing something there. That's good. Keep them coming. I see Cindy Siwishi, you need to be yeah, the ideas must be organized. They must be, in other words, they must be structured. And I like that. And I'm also seeing that you bring up the matter of content structure. You're seeing this formal writing, seeing all those necessary, relevant things that you are sharing with us. I appreciate that so much. Let's talk on organization of the paragraph. Let's talk about that structure of the paragraph because it is important to have that in focus. And I'll come back to read what is typing in there. But let's look at the structure itself. You know, if you look at the top, shapes are the same. The difference is one is facing down, the other one at the bottom is facing up. These are pyramids. Okay, one is facing up, and the other one is facing bottom. And so I want us to engage this structure so that we get to see how our own writing can get to that shape. That structure, it is interesting because if you look at next to the top shape, it's facing down and it's written next to it, we have the word introduction. But look at the shape of the introduction and the shape of the conclusion, they're exactly the same. Now, I don't know if you have done an essay before or already at university. Did you consider this structure? That there must be this macro structure. If you look at the top there, the heading, it says structured overall macro structure. So meaning the structure of your essay should consist of introduction, body, paragraphs, and the conclusion. But look at the shape of the introduction and the shape of the conclusion. They're exactly the same. The difference, one is facing up, the other facing down, as I've said. But look at also the shapes of the body paragraphs. They are just of a proportionate length, and they are of the same color, of course. So it means the middle paragraphs there, they need to be structured in a certain way, and that structure should be followed in all the paragraphs that are used or are written in the body of your essay. Besides essay writing, you can also be asked to write a paragraph to answer a paragraph question. Now, that paragraph which you are writing to answer a paragraph question, it needs to also be what? Structured. How so? How do you arrange the sentences in that structure? Is what we want to achieve through this workshop. All right, check if we have something. Okay, Nobuta writes, it is important to use clear and precise language to ensure that your reader knows exactly what you mean. I agree. Absolutely correct. It is important to have clear expressions or clear statements or clear sentences which make sense to be understood by the reader. I agree with you 100%. Okay. But again, I want to add something to these ideas that the two students have shared, and that when we write a paragraph, maybe we haven't yet, but we will get there where we are asked to write a paragraph or to write multiple paragraphs or even an essay. We want to make sure that it is structured, because academic writing is structured, as I've said. How, for me to know the structure of an introduction and the structure of the conclusion, for me to know these two very well and how to do it or to write it successfully, I first need to know what should I write first in an introduction, and what will the next sentence in the introduction be like, and what will be the last sentences in the introduction be like. In other words, I need to know, what do I begin with, what do I continue with, and what do I end my introduction with. There is a clear guideline on that aspect when of writing an introduction. You need to know how to arrange the introduction in such a way that I know what or how to begin my introduction. I know what else to be written when I'm writing in the introduction, and I also know how to end my introduction. You don't just write introduction randomly. I need to see certain things in your introduction. If I don't see those things, then the introduction has not been successfully written. The same with the conclusion. I need to see certain things in the conclusion, and the things that I see in the conclusion should basically correspond with what I see in the introduction. Because if you look at the shape, the two are similar or the same. So I want to see that what goes into our introduction, it re-emerges or it resurfaces in the concluding paragraph. Can we do it like that? If we do, then we are basically doing it right. But if we are not sure what to write in the introduction, we just write a paragraph, and we don't follow the guidelines of writing an academic essay paragraph, rather introduction, then we are bound to make mistakes and write random paragraphs which do not really serve the purpose of writing an academically sound introduction. So we want to bridge those gaps if they are indeed there. Now, that is the structure. It must be structured. The essay must be a unit. It must work together, not isolated sentences or paragraphs which do not work together. It must flow from paragraph to paragraph. It must flow from sentence to sentence, like that, up to the end. Conclusion must speak to, rather, introduction must speak to the conclusion. What you have introduced, it should actually resurface once again in the concluding paragraph. But how do you do that? Let us look at what are the requirements for a good introduction. These things, don't leave them out when you write the introduction. Remember, we are tackling critical writing, but I'm not yet into that subject. I just want to show you that when you do critical writing, you must do it in a structured manner. What do you write in the introduction? The following points are very important. If your introduction doesn't have them, then your introduction still needs to be reworked. Your introduction must have, or it must begin with the thesis statement. In other words, the thesis statement will consist of two things. One, the topic of the essay. Two, the your position on that topic, your stance on that topic. Where do you stand on that topic? Do you agree with the topic or do you disagree with the topic? So your stance must be expressed together with the topic right at the beginning of your essay. Right there at the beginning of your essay. We as the readers must know what the topic is that you are addressing and how are you intending to address, what position are you taking in addressing that topic. And so that is the first thing. If you look at bullet number 1, it's the first thing that we want to see, a thesis statement. Were you introduced to a thesis statement before? Can you construct a thesis statement now? If you can, it's very good because it means you just need to revise it with me or check, compare what you know about thesis statement with what I am actually introducing to you as a thesis statement. But what I want to emphasize is you begin your introduction with that thesis statement. What is a thesis statement? It is a statement that consists of one, the writer's position on the topic, as well as what it also consists of the topic itself. So I want to see the introduction begins with that thesis statement. If it doesn't, then it is now beginning to give some problems. But then the next thing that we want to see is that um, well, the next thing that I want to see, or we want to see when you read your introduction, is the following: is that it gives. I've skipped by number 2 and 3. Number 4, it should give the necessary background information. Wow. It must give the necessary background information on the topic. Okay, very important. Don't forget that. It gives necessary background information on the topic. Now, how do I give necessary background information on a topic? You will see with the example of introductions that students have written that they do give necessary information on the background, or rather, they do give necessary background information on the topic. But the other thing is the students may choose not to give that background information. It's their choice, but they have no choice to begin to begin their introduction with the thesis statement. That is compulsory. With regard to background information in the introductory paragraph, fine, it's up to the student to decide whether they want to include it or not. Also definition. Some students would prefer to define keywords in the introduction just so that the writer knows where the students or how the students understand these keywords going into the essay itself. So some they do want to really clarify that by defining keywords in the introductory paragraph. Still fine to define those keywords so that we know where students stand on that paragraph with regard to that essay topic. So 1, have this statement. 2, give us the background information. Remember, it's not compulsory to give that background necessary information. Depends on whether you have time to do it. Number 3, you also have to give, if it is not background information, there must be, of course, a definition there which operates as a guide as to how the keywords are understood by the how the keywords are understood by the student. Very important to do that. Remember, you need to attract your readers' interest in what you are researching or writing about. Very important. Number 3, to attract the reader's interest on what you are actually what you are about, what you are researching. Avoid those examples and details. They won't help you, especially in the introduction. You can give examples and details in the body paragraph, but not the introduction. That would be not accepted because we don't want a very long introduction paragraph. Want it to be short to the point so that when we come out of reading that introduction paragraph, we must find the following. We must find 1, that the introduction is doing certain important things. One, the introduction is doing what? Number one, the introduction is giving us the thesis statement. Number two, the introduction is giving us background information, which is not compulsory. Number three, the concepts that are there in the topic, and the introduction should serve that purpose. And then lastly, we learn that a good introduction gives the reader information that summarizes the body of your essay and gives the reader a way to predict the structure of the essay as a whole, whether the I want to say whichever way you choose, this is the structure that it must all your writing. In terms of the introduction, they must all follow this pattern or this structure. One, there must be a thesis statement. Two, there must be perhaps background information if the student chooses to share that. They choose not to. Three, the student must be compulsory as well. Number four, rather, the student gives us the summary of ideas that they are going to use to address the topic, and that summary must be given in the introduction. And if you've done that, then your introduction is good. It is ready to be submitted as an introduction for a particular essay. The other important thing is to know how to do a thesis statement. And I'm going to let us look at it this way. I want to see this right from the beginning, that when you do an introduction, it is not an adequate introduction if it doesn't have the thesis statement. In other words, if it doesn't tell the reader what the topic is and what your position on that topic is, it must give that indication right at the beginning. You know why? So that the reader understands and can make a prediction as to how the content in your actual essay is going to be looking like. Maybe you have covered it, but did not actually use the word or phrase or the concept thesis statement, but it was done. This is how you begin your introduction. You cannot begin it without a thesis statement. It must be there. Some students prefer to place it at the end, but those are students who perhaps already they know that it should be there, and they can place it strategically in certain areas of their introduction, but they know it ultimately has to be there. But at this phase, that is at undergrads level, I would prefer that students would actually put it right at the beginning so that we do not struggle to know where it is. This statement has to be there. Look at this student who writes who shows their topic and their position on the topic. The topic is reading develops a child's mind. This is what the essay is about. They are arguing to say it does develop the child's mind. This is the topic. Now, where does the student stand on this, or what is the student's position on the topic? He says it develops the child's mind, and it also not only does, pardon me, it develops the child's mind by fostering comprehension skills, by increasing vocabulary, and exposing them to new worlds they might not otherwise encounter. So this is basically where the writer's position is regarding reading. So the writer is actually arguing that reading does develop, but is also showing their position on that topic, that it develops the mind in this way. It encourages comprehension, it increases vocabulary, it exposes them to worlds that they might not otherwise have known. So we see there that there is one, the topic and the controlling idea of the writer, the writer's position on the topic itself. Maybe it's a bit complex, it's fine. It doesn't need to be very clear right at the beginning, but it should be as we move on. If we look at this topic here, student who wrote, remember, we want you to write critical paragraphs, critical essays, critical academic writing. We want you to do that, but in order for your writing must be structured. Your ideas must be expressed within a particular structure. Here is a topic, very nice topic that I have. It is a straightforward topic which students have worked with for quite a while. That I worked with students that I worked with, they would actually say, yeah, I've actually come across this, or it was taken from a question paper. And let's look at it. It says, crime, teenage pregnancy, illiteracy are fundamental threats to any country's development. Discuss these ideas and illustrate how they potentially affect the development of a nation. Now, here is the introduction that the student actually, I've analyzed it. And look at the introduction with me. It says social maladies such as crime, teenage pregnancy are indeed fundamental threat to the economic and social development of South Africa. So if you look at the second part of the question, the essay question, it says, discuss two of these issues of either crime or teenage pregnancy or illiteracy or HIV/AIDS. So the students is chosen to focus on crime and teenage pregnancy. If you look at it, if you look at the first sentence, it does mention crime and teenage pregnancy. So the two issues that the student is working on are crime and teenage pregnancy, and illustrate how they potentially affect the development of a nation of your choice, the nation of South Africa. And he's going to show how it affects that nation. But let's read the opening sentence. Is this opening sentence a thesis statement? Yes, it is. How so? It has two things: one, topic, and the writer's position on the topic. Let's look at it. It says social maladies such as crime and teenage pregnancy. That is the topic. The topic uses those words. So social maladies such as crime and teenage pregnancy are indeed a fundamental threat to the economic and the social development of South Africa. In fact, this is the position he believes, or she believes, that these two maladies are a threat to the economic and social development of South Africa. So indeed, in the first sentence, the student has expressed one, the topic, together with the position that the student is taking on that same topic. And it's done that successfully. You can see the examples there neatly illustrated for you. Right. What about, remember when we were talking about the things or points to include in the introduction and the sequencing of those, we said, or I said, that you begin with the top, rather the thesis statement. Then you can provide background information if you do have it. If you don't, it's not compulsory. You can provide definitions if you do have them. If you don't, it's not compulsory, especially students who feel they need to define a keyword. It's fine, they can define, but it is not as such compulsory. Can you leave out? Can your introduction afford to leave out this statement? No ways. It must always begin with that thesis. Let's look at the rest of the paragraph, the introduction. It says South Africa is plagued by corruption and violent crimes such as armed robbery, carjacking, gender-based violence, and murder. The country is also grappling with the high number of school-going teenagers falling pregnant. Such maladies pose a serious threat to the economic and social development of South Africa. So what is this part of the introduction? What is it called? It is called, if you look at the bottom information that is given. It says information that summarizes the body of your essay and gives the reader a way to predict the structure of the essay as a whole is given there. The letters that are blue, they give the reader what ideas the writer is going to use, or the student is going to use to support the position that they have taken. In other words, the writer has said that crime and teenage pregnancy are a threat to economic and of South Africa. Now, what ideas is to use to support that stance or position? So here they are given in blue. They are given what ideas they're going to use to support their stance. They're going to say, that South Africa is plagued by corruption and violent crimes, such as armed robbery and carjacking, gender-based violence. Now, I'm expecting when I'm reading the body of the essay to read about armed robbery and how armed robbery was or is a serious threat to the economic and social development of South Africa, how carjacking is a problem and is hampering social development, or rather economic and social development of South Africa, how gender-based violence is a problem, how murder is a problem, and it's affecting social development of South Africa. So I'm expecting that this essay would cover that ground. But then, not only those, it will also cover some ground on teenage pregnancy and how that affects the economic growth of the country. What this structure is, in fact, if you look at the bottom information given, it says information that summarizes the body of your essay. In other words, points or ideas that show what you are going to dwell on in supporting the stance that you have taken in the introduction. You would use, in this instance, the student would use armed robbery to show how it is affecting the economy and development of South Africa socially. It's going to write about car hijacking. These are all crimes. And it's going to show how gender-based violence is also having a negative impact on South Africa's development. So these are crimes. But not only that, the student is going to also be focusing on what? On teenage pregnancy. He says about teenage pregnancy, the country is also grappling with the high number of school-going teenagers falling pregnant. So he's going to cover that part as well in the essay. I'm expecting to read about robbery, carjacking, gender-based violence, and murder, showing how they are affecting the social economic development of South Africa. Not only that, I'm expecting also to read about school-going teenagers falling pregnant and how that affects, how in fact that affects the economic and social. So those summaries of ideas are given in the introduction so that the reader understands or knows what ideas are going to be used in the body of the essay to support the stance that the students has taken in that introduction or in the thesis statement. I hope you understand. Those that are written in black give us in the black background the information given there. It says that when examining or analyzing this introduction, it doesn't give definitions, which is still fine. Remember, it's not compulsory. It also does not give background information. Remember, it's fine, it's not compulsory. However, thesis statement is compulsory. Summary of ideas that you're going to use to support the thesis statement, very, very important to show us or give us briefly the ideas that you're going to be using to support your main, or rather your thesis statement. I then move with the structure to the next paragraph, which of course will be body paragraphs. And I want to really say that even the paragraphs in the body of an essay must have a structure. You must know what you begin with, what you continue with, and how you end your paragraph. You must know that very, very well. And so I want to take you back to this. I want to take you back to this slide. If it's showing, let me wait. If it's still coming onto your screen, But this is the slide that I really want us to work with. Notice that I said the introduction should have a thesis statement and a summary of ideas that show how you are going to support the thesis statement in the body of your essay. And I also said there could also be background information, although not compulsory. There could also be what definitions, but we don't want examples in the introduction or details that will be given in the body paragraphs. These blocks that are what color? Orange, represent body paragraphs. And they also have a structure, just as an introduction would. And I want us to dwell on that so that we then get to determine the difference between the first or the introduction and body paragraphs. How do they differ? They do differ. There is a structure for body paragraphs that we need to adhere to. Let's look at the body paragraph for and in fact, this is another introduction. But this one, if you look with me here, right here, it does give the definition. The student decided to give it a definition because the student felt that, the student may have felt that there's a need for a definition to be given in this instance. But let's just go through this introduction quickly so that we see the necessity of defining the keyword as given by the student. Let me start. By the way, the topic is right there at the top. If you look at it, it says in modern society, there's a pronounced focus. There's modern society. Are we living in modern society? I think so. I think so. There's a pronounced focus on the body. I think, yeah, I think I agree. In today's social media platforms, body is such a big thing. So there is pronounced focus on the body and what it takes to achieve so-called beauty by means of diet, exercise, and plastic surgery. This is just information given regarding the topic, in the topic. And here is the actual question. It says, in your opinion, does society go too far in its obsession with weight and physical beauty? Write an argumentative essay. How do you write an argumentative essay? It's not the focus. Let's look at the, the introduction. Does it have a thesis statement? Does it have a summary of ideas that the writer is going to use to address or to support the stance that they've taken? But the question of the essay says, does society go too far in its obsession with weight and physical beauty? Write an argumentative essay which demonstrates your stance. The student writes in observation. Something is wrong there. What is wrong is this. Let me correct it. All right, now we corrected what was wrong. And then there's share. Students, what is wrong is the following. In my observation, basically, the student has made an observation. And having made an observation on what? On the topic, weight and physical beauty in society. So that is the topic. So basically, the first sentence has the topic and the student's stance or position on the topic. Student says, in my observation regarding weight and physical beauty in society, there is no obsession. Is that not the standpoint or position of the student on the topic regarding weight and physical beauty in society? It is. He says there's no obsession. As he writes an argumentative essay, the student will be arguing that there's no obsession. Okay, So we expect that position to be sustained right through the essay itself. But then he goes on and he says the term obsession, this is now the definition. Remember in the introduction aspects to including the introduction, we said it's not compulsory to define, but if you feel there's a need for you to define something or a keyword, you're welcome to do so. So here he defines, she says in the definition, the term obsession in the context of the topic. The term obsession in the context of the topic. Now, the student feels the need to define obsession so that the writer, or rather the reader, understand the student's interpretation of obsession as it is used in the essay. The term obsession in the context of the topic refers to the continual preoccupation to a troubling extent with one's body and physical beauty. Are the student obsessed in that sense, in the sense that they are troubling extent, disturbing extent about their body? The student seems to believe that there's no obsession. This is not an obsession. It doesn't qualify as an obsession. They are not obsessed. They are not preoccupied about their weight, their physical appearance. They are not obsessed. This is the argument that the student is putting forward. Now, let's look at the ideas that the student is going to use to support their stance or position on the topic. It says body consciousness is not an obsession, but a health concern about your physical look. Therefore, your dietary concern, regular exercise, and visiting a local spa for body treat may yield significant health benefits for the young and old alike. This tells us how the student is going to be supporting their stance on the topic. They are going to be saying it's not an obsession. They are just, concerned about their body, the fitness of their body. So you can't call a concern about fitness an obsession. Not to be really worried whether you are fit or not. And so this is what the student is going to be saying to support their position on the topic. But a health concern about your physical look. Therefore, dietary concern, regular exercise, visiting local spa for a trade, the student will be saying that it is important to do what? To be concerned about what you eat. It is important to really do regular exercises. It is important to visit a local spa because these things they yield positive. So this is now the ideas that the student is going to be putting across in support of no obsession with beauty. So I think the introduction is very, very clear. It has all the necessary aspects that should go into an introduction. You will agree with me on that one. These are students who wrote their introductions. It will be interesting to critique these introductions. I'm not going to have time now to critique the introductions with you. There are things that are there, there are things that are not there. I needed you to do it, to say this introduction is good or it is not good. It is good because it has 1, 2, 3 things. It's not good because it lacks 1, 2, 3 things. The time to do that? No time. And this one is so analyzed as well to show why it is not good. And the students wrote other introductions that were not outstanding. But let me just focus our attention on one student introduction. Maybe critique it. I'm just going to give you, say it is good or not good. If you say it is good, you say it meets the requirements for a good introduction because it does 1, 2, 3, or it says 1, 2, 3 things, and you do the same. Yes, you do this. You do. Remember, the topic is still the same one. It's about the social maladies. I'll actually project that topic so that you know it is the topic that the student has chosen to work on. And let's see if the introduction is fit introduction that would give the student a chance to succeed in their studies. I'm going to ask that you take a picture of the student's draft introduction, and having done so, I'll then take you back to the slide on what should be written in the introduction, and then you analyze the introduction based on that slide. Have you taken a picture? I assume, I believe so. I'll give you one more second to do the picture quickly before I move. Okay, you have taken a picture of the introduction, rather that introduction by students. Now, these are all the expectations of points to be included in the introduction. As you look at this slide and the content of the slide, and you also compare with the introduction of student A, does it have all these things that should go into an introduction? Okay, let me give the following. Before we move to the body paragraphs, let's get back to that introduction. I'm going to read it aloud. It says, simple terms, or an underage 20-year-old who already experiences periods not on any contraception method and has unprotected sexual intercourse with a male figure. Previously, generations before ours had children. Circumstances then, that is, there were children. But then it was expected of women to become housewives. Things are different today now, but still teenage pregnancy is still rapidly growing. Now, this section is doing, does it have a thesis statement? I know where, or rather, what the student's position on the topic is. No, I don't. The information, rather, the student define terms or keywords that the student feels need to be defined. Pregnancy, which is quite good, we give it to the student, but I still struggle because I don't know where the student stands on this topic. In other words, what the student's position on the topic is. So what should I expect in the body of the essay? I'm not sure what to expect as yet. Does he then or she present some of ideas which the student will use to support the stance? Well, there's no stance. If there's no stance, the student will struggle to come up with ideas to support the stance because he's not aware that there should be a stance on the topic, and the student then use to support that stance. And it's that are not structured based on what I'm getting in the introduction. You see, so it is not an introduction that could be supported as a very good one, which is actually helping the student or set the set the ground nicely for the reader to know or what to expect in the body of the essays, because the student is not doing that in the introduction. I hope you agree with me in your heart considering this introduction, unless you've seen something that I have not seen and you feel strongly that, or maybe not even strongly, that there are things that perhaps we should give in consideration of what the introduction is actually doing. So that is what I want to say regarding introduction. From there on, we get into body paragraphs. Once I'm done with body paragraphs, then we go to critical writing so that we have you write critically and in a manner that is very, very structured as a requirement of academic writing. In summation, I want to re-emphasize that academic writing is structured. And so your introduction must be structured, your body paragraphs must be structured, your concluding paragraph must also be structured. And with these words said, I would like to really thank you for your attendance. Remember, I haven't moved further into the body paragraphs. It does show that on Saturday, I have to switch back to this presentation and get through the body paragraphs and work through that. But we are not done yet. There are a few more things that need to be ironed out before we get into how to write critically. Now, I want to thank you for attending this evening. I hope this was helpful in terms of structure of academic writing, and we'll add more layer to it when we meet again on Saturday. This Saturday, I'm available. I'm going to be with you in our next workshop, which is academic literacy workshop. I hope to see you then. Make time. If you don't have any commitments, please join so that we continue to have a great time of learning and closing gaps where they may be, and assisting where assistance is required. Otherwise, from my side, I am saying good night. See you then on Saturday.